Hello everyone, welcome back to Sketchcraft Live. So today we'll be talking about Copic coloring, skin tones. I'm going to basically go through my process, which I have worked out so I can explain it to you all. I've done this a multitude of ways, but I think the basic thing I'm going to cover right now is just how to get sort of pretty skin tones, like the general. It's going to work pretty much for everybody. You can always go darker, you can always go a little more grittier depending upon the character you're going to be coloring. But in this case, it's going to be this is a picture of Psylocke I drew that I will Copic over. I've printed this out. This is a copy, multiple copies here. I've already got a tutorial on how to do this, how to print your lines out to Copic. I've already done this before, so I can kind of show you some examples. This is what we'll be going for, this right here, this particular look. These are some other examples of different processes, trying to figure out which one I think is the best way to go. The colors that we'll be using for this are quite a few. Now, I will let you know that if you just want some basic coloring with Copic, you don't need all these colors. Okay, I would basically just recommend an E00 and a YR00 and a VO1. Just if you just basically want to color a character and have a little bit of color fluctuation, these will do really, really well. Anything beyond that, like this other stuff, is really just my own tinkering, my own way. I like a lot of little minor color fluctuation as I work. So, but like I said, if you just want to basically color some faces, some basic skin tones, E00, YR00, or basically E00 and E02, I think would probably be a little bit better. And then VO1 for your shadow. And let me just show you what I mean. Is E00, anything with the 00 is basically the lightest skin tone. There's one other here. There are the triple zeros, like YR000. Those are pretty super light. And you can go super light if you need to. I would recommend maybe a R000. I really want to go super light. But in this case, pale white works good too, which is not pale white. Yeah, the R000, cherry white. But let me just show you. If I take this, and if you're wondering what the difference between this round one and these not so round ones, this is called a Chow marker, Copic Chow, and these are Copic Sketch. The only real difference is that on this Copic Sketch, you get this, I'll be honest, I think you just basically get more ink. Like, because these are pretty much the same freaking thing. They have all the same colors, all the same codes. These tend to last longer, but I use refills. So anytime I'm practicing with new colors, I'll buy the Chows to start, or if I just want a new nib, a new pen with ink in it, I'll get the Chow, because they're usually like $1, $1.50 less. And so if you get the refills, like this stuff, then it doesn't really matter. Same color codes. Let me just show you a basic, using these basic three colors, is I'm going to start with the E00. And basically with Copics, you want to go as light as humanly possible. And then go darker. And so I have this thing called haloing. I kind of go around the edges of my shade and then halo inward. I still want some white in there. I'm not just fully blanketing this in skin tone. And if you let it sit for a little while, which I will, you'll also find that you can go back over and get another pass. You can see right there, that would be a start. Then what I like to do is take the V01 and start to smoothly trace over my shadow areas, which I generally already mark out with my tonal shading. Now, this kind of coloring that I use isn't really realistic. It's more like I like into like the Capcom Copic renderings from like the early to mid 90s. So it's kind of the stuff I grew up with, like the early concept art, for like the first couple Darkstalkers games or the early Street Fighter games. And it has a little bit more of like a watercolor feel to it. So again, if you just wanted to use 3 colors, this is basically what you do. You halo it back over with the E02. It's going to be a bit more saturated. And then I'll go back with the E00. You can sort of blend out the edges. Sometimes when you're coloring, you're going to see this mottled effect. It doesn't actually dry that way, just because the paper's wet. If you let it dry, it smoothens up. You can come back over around the lines. And that would basically get you pretty much there, you know. You can come back over to V01 and kind of strengthen up some of the shadows. And that would be enough for most like commissions or con sketches or something. Pretty simple method. If you wanted to add an extra shade layer, you could always take a warm gray. This is warm gray 5 or cool gray, depending on what you're looking for, and just sort of touch up, you know, the darker areas. Don't go crazy with it, but you can just kind of come in there and blend it back out using the V01. You don't actually need the colorless blender, which I never use. So that's the easy way. The more, you know, again, you could continue. Once you look, I would let this dry like 3 or 4 minutes. If you want to add more rendering, you could always come back over and just kind of follow the shapes and then blend out the edge a little bit using a lighter color. So super simple. But we're going to go and do it my more complicated way. The one that I like to kind of add a bit more to. So kind of starts off the same. I'm going to use the E00, the V01, and this time the YR00 to start. So, and again, I'll just sort of halo around the edges and work my way in. Let that dry for a second. And you'll see the modeling kind of like just blend into the paper. The paper I use is B marker paper, BEE. I'll show you what it looks like when you buy it from the store. This would be a typical artist pad. Looks like this. Right. It's 11 by 14. So you can get sheets of 11 by 17 or 8.5 by 11. Doesn't matter. And then, make sure I got enough. I gotta come in with the V01. V01. Start to work the shadows back in. Like so. I tend to go a little darker on the very edges because I like to add white highlights when I'm done, which I won't really cover in this video too much. I don't want to just stick it to the skin tones, but they are necessary. It's just something I like to add, which you'll see. Not too much. I don't want to go too far. And then I'm going to take the Y00. I'm going to halo right around those edges again. This is a bit more of a subtle color shift than the E02. I'm also going to go over the purple with it. I just lay down to sort of blend the two together. And I'll also start to work on the nose area, which I try not to over render. I go back over with the V01. And then the YR00. See, as it dries and you add another layer, it will throw on another set color pass over it. So you get a little bit more saturation, you get a little bit more color fluctuation. We'll grab E00, kind of lightly blend that out. Get one more pass with this just to make certain I'll let that dry for a second. Let dry for a couple minutes. It actually is wet. Now here's where things start to change a little bit. I got a B000. It's the lightest blue you can really get, I found. So it's pale porcelain blue, but the code's really important, B000. Use a super rich tip. What I'm going to just do is sort of go back and forth and just put a little blue into the shadow. And if you see after a little while, it'll start to rub away. You get a little bit of these blue fluctuations. It's kind of hard to see. Even when I use the digital zoom, let me see if I can make a big difference. Zoom right in. Get the focus. So kind of get the. We'll come right over here. And we'll kind of work some of that blue in there. This paper is what allows this to occur, to happen. This fluctuation. This is more like glazing that you'd find in watercolor. You can throw a little bit over here. And back here. Let that dry for a second. You can start to see the little bit of the color fluctuation difference there, as opposed to just say this, which is sort of just saturated. And then I'm gonna go a little dark now. Really, what you're trying to do is take it to the darkest spot, then build back in your spot highlights or brighter saturated colors, and then I usually do like my my white highlights. So this is going to use a W5, a warm gray 5. Warm gray 5. And I'm going to sort of shade in the darker parts here. And you really only want to use the small corners. You want to create contrast. You're not trying to muddy the piece up. Little cracks and crevices, basically. Kind of push certain features back. It's not a ton there. And this is sort of dried in the center. I'm going to use a Y0, 000, which is a very, very light yellow, just to kind of throw in a little sunlight, little color into the white spots. It's very subtle. It's hard to tell, you know, through the internet how that changes it, but it really does. A lot of the stuff I'm doing here isn't really for, like, you know, the internet's sake or for like likes. It's when the person who gets the piece is able to really just see these subtle shifts in color. Come out pretty nicely. And now I'm going to take that. Remember that E02? E02. Now I'm going to use that. And we're going to use it to sort of halo around all the lines. Like her nose, a little saturation to it. And we're going to come right around where the shadow meets the skin and halo that line. Create this sort of hot spot. Using saturated color. Gives it a warmer feel. You don't want to overdo it, or she'll turn into like a Oompa Loompa. I can take the V01, kind of just go back over a little bit, put some of that purple back in. It has the pink in it too, you know. Come around her nose, put that a little bit of shade. Dry for a second. I say I want a little bit more rendering on her cheek. Take the YR00, right? Since we have 3 tones we're working with, we can sort of use this as a mid-tone blender to give me just a little bit more rendering. And then if I think that line's a little harsh, I can just blend it out a little bit using the E00. Sort of pushing it out. Somewhat of a lip. And come back here with this blue and just sort of go back and forth and kind of put one of those blue highlights back in the shadow. Like I said, this is a product of like this right here is just subtleness. You know? Come back with the E00 and the V01. Create just a little bit of shadow fluctuation. No, that's getting a little dry. Let me refill my V01 really quick. I'll let that dry for a second, and then I'll go over my last part of this. So to refill, I just sort of hold this nib up, not directly over my art. And I get the refill, I sort of dab on each side, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I turn it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you start to see the ink kind of bubble up around the sides, and then you switch to the other side. Let it set in there for a little bit. see it kind of build up. And let it die back down. There. And once it does that automatically, the first drop on both sides, you're pretty much good to go. All right, so one of the last things I like to do is then I take this, which is an E09. It's burnt sienna. It's a pretty dark color. And you just very carefully want to go around the edges of the skin. And just trace right over the line. Let that dry for a second. Where did I put that? I'm going to take this 0.03 Copic multiliner. I'm just going to go and trace right over her eye. Blacks are the very last thing I would add to a piece. There you go. Would never use a 0.03 to fill in blacks on any other piece other than the face. The face is really the hardest part. And we'll go wherever the eyebrow. Let this sit for a little bit. And then for the sake of just, talk here, you can quickly color her lips, which aren't going to take but 2 seconds, which is RV11. I'm just going to halo around her lips, leaving a little bit of white there, wherever I want the little white hot spot to be. And then I'm going to take an R27, which is this bright red, and just very carefully trace the edges of her lips. And then come back over with this. Sort of push the color out a little bit. Maybe a little R43, so very saturated pink. I don't think it's going to help as much. Doesn't really matter. I can take my yellow and very quickly, where is it? This is the white 000. This is the white 00. Good for sort of just haloing around the edges of white high spots. Then I'll take the same blue I've been using and just quickly color in the eye. This is the B 000. Then I can use a B 00 to darken that back up. And the V01 just to add a little shade into her eye area. Then take my E02 and just again go around these lines. Part of this is just having done it enough. I can have my own like adjustments that I look at and go, well, it needs a little bit of this, needs a little bit of that. This is C5. And that's basically it. That right there would be enough. You don't really have to go much further beyond that. Yeah, you'd color the rest of the piece. But you can sort of see the difference in the skin tones between this sort of basic version and something like this. You know, and part of it's just letting it sit for a little bit and saying, hey, maybe, you know, maybe I want a little bit more of this hot spot with the E02 right here, you know? I can just tap the edges. You know, maybe this isn't pulled back far enough with the W5. But a lot of that's just, you know, nitpicky. That's it. That's it. So just step and repeat across your entire image and you'll be done. All right, well, it has been a very long week. I won't get into it right now. If you have any comments or questions, just leave them in the comments below. I will take care of it, answer it for you as quickly as I can. Thanks for hanging out. I will talk to you later. Bye.